Okay.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the eMarketing Association. My day job is I run Did It, a 83-person digital first ad agency. I also have a nonprofit called Giving Forward that generates revenue for other nonprofits using cause marketing. I'm joined today by Roy Moskowitz, who runs Reciprocal Results, and he's active in a bunch of different areas within paid media and earned media, but Reciprocal Results really made a name for itself, and as did Roy in the barter space. So my first question really is for those of folks who aren't familiar with media barter, what should they know about media barter that they probably don't know?
Well, media barter, a lot of people, well, the people who have no idea that billions of dollars worth of media are purchased this way. And people that do know about it, of course, media barter has a reputation worse than that of politicians and used car salespeople. And of course, my other big discipline that I got involved with in addition to barter is politics, political consulting. So I've been in both places, and believe it or not, the barter industry has a worse reputation, and most of it well deserved. What media barter generally is the purchase of underperforming assets in exchange for advertising. Underperforming assets could be closed-on merchandise, which is the most frequent category. It could also be production capacity. It could be real estate. It could be airline seats, hotel rooms. Generally, the two most common are excess merchandise and hotel rooms.
Interesting.
And generally, the companies that do it are public companies. And for book value, the value of the media I give them is greater than the cash they can generate from selling their merchandise. And that's what media barter is. But a lot of the time, companies really commit grand larceny. And one of the reasons why I started my own company was I was asked to do that at a company I worked for, and I refused. And when I first started my company, the name I wanted to do, because of the industry's reputation, I took the Latin phrase for honest and for barter, and it came up with a name called probus mutuo. Everybody hated it. So when I was pitching my investors originally, they asked me what I'm going to call the company. I said the name, it bombed, and then I just came up with Reciprocal Results at the spur of the moment.
Well, sometimes spur of the moment works out really well. So I do remember I was involved in some barter media in the past, and the big sticking point was always this idea that you needed to use a combination of the trade credits and cash to buy the media, and the percentage was always such that you probably could have negotiated a sufficiently good price for that media where the cash portion would have covered the whole thing, right? And so then the credits basically...
What barter companies generally did, and one of the things that I protested about was that they would keep as pure profit what they sell the merchandise for as cash, plus make a spread, usually a full 15, on the media buying.
Right.
And I talked about that openly when I started the company, and the Trade Association for Corporate Trade said nobody does that. Everybody does that, And I wanted to at least not make that my default. I mean, if somebody wanted to do a deal like that, where the only way I could give them the trade value they wanted, and they were going to do a deal with someone else, yeah, I would do that type of deal. But even then, what I would do is I would give them a percentage of the cash back, rather than pocketing it or make a smaller spread.
Right.
And my company, though, although we started out as barter, we were the barter division of KSL Media, which was at that time a $500 million media buying service. At that time, the largest media buying service that was not owned by one of the big publicly traded holding companies, although they did get purchased by that during my tenure there. And then they bought themselves out. And we parted company in 2001. And doing barter was a little more difficult, being essentially a one-person shop. So I evolved into becoming a full-service ad agency. And then in 2005, I started doing political. And I started doing both political paid and earned media. where I would act as communications director for congressional campaigns and city council campaigns. I would buy the media time, both traditional and digital, for the campaigns, and sometimes reluctantly acting as campaign manager, which I really don't want to. I really did not want to get involved with the nitty gritty, down and dirty day-to-day operations of a campaign. Plus, it also limits other clients I can have. And the campaigns I tend to work with are underfunded. So it's not like I'm going to be getting a lot of money for my time on that.
Right, right. Another question on the barter side: when the company is bartering its assets, does it often put constraints on exactly where that product or service, whether it's or in the case of travel, obviously, I guess that's more of a service, like where it ends up? Do they tie your hands with regards to the disposition of the assets?
Very much so, and you have to, obey by their restrictions. I almost always pre-sell the merchandise, and they know exactly where it goes. I even show them how much money cash I get for it, which other barter companies won't necessarily do.
Right. Right.
But I will always tell them, because I'm not going to warehouse it myself. Right. So I mean, the only exception to that is I'll do some like local small restaurant barter still, and basically I'm bartering for myself. I get a few free meals.
Well, it's great to see someone do a more transparent version of barter. So certainly, if folks are interested in chatting with you and understanding how to do barter in a way where it's transparent and they actually know that they're getting what they're paying for and paying for what they get, they can find you on LinkedIn, or they can Google Reciprocal Results. And on the political side, I'm sort of curious, obviously politics is always a blend of paid media and earned media, PR and such. And, do you have any thoughts for folks doing political advertising who haven't been doing it as long as you, how to find that perfect blend? Like, what does the media mix look like between earned media, paid media? And then within the paid media category, are there any underused elements of paid media that you think most political campaigns don't do?
I think earned media has to be something going on constantly. And the less money a campaign has, more earned media you have to do. Of course, with
Right.
down ballot races and with less local coverage for all the media outlets, it gets to be very difficult to get coverage. And sometimes the media will decide if they're going to cover like a congressional race. New York Times will decide which congressional races they're going to cover. And I remember one year on a campaign, they said, we're not covering the race until after primary. We have no primary. So we didn't get coverage until that. Now the primaries are in June for Congress in New York State, but that year they were in September. So the election's in November. The Times didn't start covering us until October. And we could have used the coverage for fundraising purposes. People don't see you in the media. They're not going to know you're running. They're not going to donate. And so that was an issue. So there is a constant push. You have to constantly push to get earned media on it. Occasionally you get you'll strike gold, sometimes by accident. Sometimes, you have to just be persistent. And that's something campaigns have to do. Of course, now with social, you can create some of your own exposure that way as well. And I'm a big proponent of leveraging social. You could put what you want as a media hit. You could put the press release. You could put video. If you have the personnel, whether volunteer or paid on a campaign, should have somebody videotape all your events. You take snippets, even if it's not a great speech you made. There's always something good you can take out of it. And to be able to have that access, and then to be able to leverage it on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or Twitter, I think that's important. But even that stuff I prefer not to do these days. I really prefer just to do the media buying, and whether it's traditional or digital. And it depends on the race, depends on the budget, depends on the political district. I recently wrote an article. Well, not that recently anymore. It's December, and we're in August. But for Campaigns and Elections magazine, about when to do TV and when not to do TV. And it's an article that's been in my head for years. But depending on the media, in a market like New York, no more than 3.7% of the audience lives in any congressional district. Between New York and New Jersey, I think there are about 25 individual congressional districts. I actually have a spreadsheet with this. And you see people in congressional races and worse, down ballot races who are running on broadcast TV, and which is insane. Yeah, I did not have my previous congressman as an account. I supported him, donated to him, and will support him if he decides to run after he lost the last election. But friends of mine in Long Island and New Jersey, they knew who he was. They can't vote for him. And he was running commercials or spending millions and millions of dollars. Somebody had too much money, basically. But he was wasting all that money running on broadcast. Now, my district is Staten Island and plus a small strip of Brooklyn. And he should have used cable for Staten Island, which he did, but he didn't need to do the broadcast. In Brooklyn, he should not have used cable simply because the Brooklyn part of the district is too small, the coverage area for cable in Brooklyn. And then the rest should have been digital. And think about digital today, you can give a voter list. You can use DSPs, digital demand-sized platforms where you can target just individual voters. You can either give a custom list that you're supplying, or you can just use a generic list supplied by your DSP, where you go through people in an individual political district, all Democrats, all the Democrats and independents, all the voters. And you could target people that way. Why? No waste.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lesson that actually traditional marketers should also take away, which is any media campaign is going to have some waste factor, right? And the whole idea is to try to get that waste factor down as low as possible, and then calculate your effective CPM, your effective cost based on the actual audience, not just based on the total audience, most of whom you don't want, right? So whether it's dentures or diapers, right? We've all been exposed to those ads that we're not in market for. And the beauty of digital is that you can get a lot closer to just reaching the segment that matters. And within politics, if you've got limited budget, I would imagine that's absolutely key. So that's a great lesson to take away. One of the other things I'd love your perspective on with regards to political advertising is somehow at the beginning of every campaign, all the candidates say that they're not going to run negative campaigns. And almost none of them end up following through, and they end up running negative campaigns. Do they have to run negative campaigns to make an impact, or do you think it's possible to run a political campaign purely on a positive messaging basis?
I think you can do it on a positive only, but it become bland and become noise. Judicial campaigns can't run negative ads, for example. But then again, do you even remember a judicial campaign ad? Right. And that's the point. I mean, you need to be able to make it memorable. I think you need to do negative the contrast between candidates, particularly not primaries, but in general elections. So very often in primaries, there is very little difference between the candidates. But in a general election, there's a big contrast between the two parties at this point. Party matters, ideology matters. It used to be, when I was a kid, you'd have people that would be, you'd have some Republicans that would be more liberal than some Democrats. Mayor Lindsay is an example of that. And he was a Republican. I was too little to know much about his mayoral thing other than brief things when my parents watched the news. I was, I think, 10 when he ceased being mayor. I mean, I'm born in 1962. So, but people like that existed. Jacob Javits, another liberal Republican. But people like that don't exist anymore on the Republican side, and now the Democrats have pretty much uh, removed the Dixie crats out. You don't have truly conservative right-wing Democrats anymore either. I mean, people complain about Joe Manchin, but Joe Manchin is still far more progressive than any current Republican.
Great. Well, we'll have to see. That's going to be an interesting next few elections, and we could probably spend all day talking about those, but it would all be hypotheses. So I think we'll have to wait and see. It's been a busy week for politics, at least here in New York State, in particular.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so it'll be an interesting election day, and I think future candidates hopefully will embrace digital more fully and not waste their budgets buying TV just because it's what they bought in the past.
It depends on, again, the political district and the media market.
Yeah.
I'm not a digital first agency, nor am I a digital last agency. My media planning really is suited to the client. And it really depends. If you're in a market that has only one congressional district, the media market has only one, you should definitely do broadcast in that situation.
Yeah.
If you're running citywide in New York City or statewide in New York State or Jersey, you should do broadcast in addition to digital and cable. But for down ballot, it's ridiculous. When I see a down ballot race like a state assembly, it's like, where is this district even? If I haven't heard of the individual of the particular candidate, I have no idea, and I'm an insider, so to speak. And imagine the general population. Who you're advertising this to? It's a waste of money.
So how does that get fixed? I mean, for traditional brands, right, and stores, whatever the store or brand is, whether it's retail or services or whatever, the marketing manager to marketing VP to CMO is going to have some tenure, and they're going to have an opportunity to learn based on their mistakes. They may do it wrong in the beginning, but then eventually they learn and their media mix improves. But for most political campaigns, right, unless they're using an agency or a person like you who's savvy, who can sort of avoid them making all those mistakes, I sort of get the sense that like they're giving it to their cousin to do because their cousin knows marketing, and of course their cousin knows nothing about an efficient media plan.
Sometimes their cousin would be better than a lot of the consultants that they use. I think a lot of the consultants have an agenda, and there's a big ethical problem, and a lot of the consulting firms should be sued for malpractice. A lot of times, I remember a TV show 30 something. Now, the agency head was this guy named Miles, and during a meeting, I remember him saying, the ads, what's going to sell the client's merchandise is few little ads in a trade publication. But we do this commercial so we can win awards so we can get clients. And that's sort of the same thing that a lot of the consulting firms do. They're not interested in reaching the most voters. They're interested in reaching the widest audience for their own work. So they get more clients and make more money. But that's malpractice. And I would say the same thing goes to email right now, too. I'm getting political email, at least 50 political emails a day. By the way, the canned spam laws don't apply to political email.
Right.
So I opted into none of these, or very few. And because I've been a donor, I get a ton of emails. Actually, I also get a ton of emails not directed to me. I get some emails directed to this guy named Ron, and he has a last name, not my last name, so it's not like they're Roy and Ron. And it's sent to my work email, which is roy@reciprocalresults.com, which they should know is not to this guy named Ron. Plus, I never use that for donations. Somehow, in databases. I give him my business card, the campaigns I've donated to in person at fundraisers. I guess they put in all my emails. So that gets put in, and somehow on some database, it's become this guy, Ron Paderno, who they misspell his name. I finally Googled him and found this doctor in Brooklyn with that name. they're missing out on the opportunity to get to them because I'm getting these emails, and I try to fix that, and it stays the same. And the weird thing is, I got an email from somebody they know personally addressed to that.
Yeah, I actually get one too. I'm also Sean in some list, and I haven't been able to get I don't know the last name because they always just address me as Sean. And it's my Kevin@kevinlee.net email address, which is the same as your problem. Like if anybody ever looked at the data file, they'd be like, well, this is wrong. But they don't. And once they screw up the data file, that's it. It's in there permanently. So
When I go to political consulting industry events, I sometimes attend email ones, and people will defend the need to send 5 emails from the same campaign or PAC on the same day to the same individual.
Right.
And to me, first of all, it makes it more likely your email becomes spam. Goes to somebody's spam folder, and I have to check my spam folder just for the political emails. And I generally don't leave them in spam. I take them out and I have a special folder so I can use them as a reference. But I figure the campaign doesn't, even though the strategy was spammy by the email agency, I still don't want to penalize a campaign for that. So I keep them in a special folder for reference. But it gets to be a big pain. But again, I think it's because they want to make more money, so they have to send out more emails. And again, that's unethical.
Yep.
Once a week or once every couple of weeks, except during crunch time, I think is probably the best number to use, best frequency.
Well, I think the common theme across our conversation is ethical marketing, right? So whether it's barter or whether it's political advertising, I think Roy, you've made a name for yourself in doing things the right way. So people who listen to have your email address, they can reach you that way if they'd like to reach out to you and have you help them out. It's been great going through and helping educate the EMA audience on sort of best practices in media and in marketing. So I appreciate you joining me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, take care. We'll stay in touch.
Okay.